What's up guys, Sean here. This is the Oknife Heron L1 review. I'm just going to get straight into it. I refined my review categories a little bit, okay? I had 20 categories and I narrowed it down to 10. I did that by getting rid of redundant categories. So instead of having a cutting category, a blade category, and so forth, I just have cutting category. You know, that would include the blade. And then instead of having a pocket clip category that I'm rating only the pocket clip, I have a carry rating and a hardware rating. So say a pocket clip would be considered into those categories. Basically, I got rid of my 20 category grade scale, narrowed it down to 10. Now these scores are out of 10 instead of out of 5. So the first category being carry, I gave this knife a 8 out of 10. It carries a lot better than you would think for its size. It's not a small knife. It comes in at 4.6, I have it right, or no, 5.36 ounces. So it's not super light, but not super heavy. You know, similar to the weight of your cell phone probably. And it carries just fine as long as you're carrying it in a pocket by itself, which for me personally, I don't put anything else in the same pocket that I'm carrying my knife in. I usually reserve my front 2 pockets for knives, 1 in each. And then I have my wallet in my back pocket and my phone in my opposite. It does sit pretty well in the pocket. Doesn't feel overly huge. It's not going to disappear like a feather, like say, I don't know, a BENCHMADE BUGOUT or a mini BUGOUT or something. Like, you know something's in your pocket, but it's not uncomfortable. It's not a nuisance, and it is, you know, easy to carry, even in shorts. So 8 out of 10. The only reason that I deducted 2 points is because it's not, you know, it's not a feather. It's a full-size knife, which I personally prefer full-size knives, but I am trying to grade this, and I always try to grade these scores for the reviews as unbiased as possible. I grade them all objectively and refrain from letting any of my personal biases, my personal preferences affect those scores. So the next category is cutting, and this got a 10 out of 10. Perfect score for cutting. We have a beautiful Wharncliffe blade with a really killer compound grind. Nice swedge up at the top, really adds to the aesthetics. I love the nice well spaced out jimping up here on the spine. Not too aggressive, but gives you a little bit of grip. It's just, you know, it feels good on the thumb. And if nothing else, it's at least, you know, sort of a place marker, you know, or an index point. You always know where to put your thumb. Which for me, I like cutting with my thumb on the back of the spine. And if you look here, the plunge grind is right here. So your cutting edge begins there. There's not much of your thumb that really hangs over the cutting path. So, I mean, you can get your choked up grip, but just don't put your thumb all the way out. You can just lay your thumb right here, and your thumb isn't gonna obstruct you while you're doing any cutting. And I prefer doing most of my cutting in this path between this point and this point, because that is where the blade is the thinnest. That's kind of the point of a compound grind. It's basically going to give you 2 different thicknesses behind the edge. Right here, obviously, is the thinnest portion. Have a nice, I mentioned in the original video, I'm not sure if that is a flat grind or a hollow grind. through this section. I'm thinking it's probably a hollow grind. Little bit hard to tell, but nonetheless, they thin it out through here, leaving a little bit thicker in this front tip portion, which adds to your strength and durability with it being a Wharncliffe blade and coming to a fine point. So you can see it brings some decent blade thickness out not all the way to the tip, but you know, a decent way out. So that's gonna lend to a much more durable and long-lasting product. So now that we got that out of the way, well, I'm not trying to rush through the cutting category because cutting is extremely important. That is essentially what you buy a knife for. That is its main #1 purpose. This knife does it really well. It shines in the area of utility cuts and detailed cuts. You know, little intricate cutting where you need a fine point to cut with and you want to do it very precisely. This would be a perfect tool for the job. Moving on to the ergonomics, we give it a 9 out of 10. This is an area that has surprised me a little bit in because, yeah, well, it doesn't look like it's necessarily going to be uncomfortable, and it also doesn't look like it's necessarily the most comfortable. But it did cross my mind that this may end up being very comfortable. I don't know if you guys have handled a Strider before, you know, mixed Strider knives. They flare out at the butt of the handle, and it's a very it's an unconventional approach at a handle design, but it's actually quite nice to grip onto. Very similar to a pistol grip, and when you fill out your your lower portion of your hand and palm, when you fill that out completely, it adds to your controllability. All right, it makes this knife less likely to shift or twist around in your hand. It locks the knife in so that you are in complete control of where this blade is cutting. If it had a much thinner, little skinny handle, the knife can, you know, rotate in your hand a little bit, and you know, the blade can kind of take off whatever direction it wants to, you know, the path of least resistance. But with this, having a nice solid grip on it, you are the one dictating where this blade is cutting. So I really like that, and there's honestly no hot spots on this that I feel whatsoever. It has some nice grippy G10. I like that they didn't just do the even, here, let me show you. Here's how Spyderco does their G10. You know, and I love Spyderco's G10. It's my favorite G10. But they took a unique approach, which I like innovation, and they did more of like a frag style, you know, little patches of the grippy part that are raised up, and then there's a lower section. Oh, I'll show you an example of frag pattern. Okay, so hopefully you can understand my comparison, what I mean when I say it's comparable to frag pattern. And you have a very nice grip texture, little bit more aggressive than Spyderco's G10, which I personally like for, you know, I like having that grip for the control and the knife being more secure in your hand. So it's not going to slip out of your hand if your hands are wet. You know, you're cutting outside or whatever, and it's raining, you have oily hands, whatever the case is, it's going to offer you grip in all of those situations. The only downside to it being a little bit more aggressive is when you go to get this down into your pocket. All right, so that's one thing I did notice with this. this knife may be a little bit of a pocket shredder. I can't say for certain because I wasn't trying to find out. I don't intentionally shred my pockets, but I do, just from putting it in and out of pocket, I do think this probably would shred your pockets on, on at least some pants. I guess it depends on how well made your pants are, but it pinches, the tension point is right up against a grippy patch of G10. Eventually it's gonna start tearing into your pockets. So, that's just one of those things. It's a give and take when it comes to handles. You want them to be nice and grippy, and I love some grippy G10, but because that's something that I'm really fond of, I have a lot of torn up pockets. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to grippy G10. Nothing against Oknife. It's not a flaw in the design. It's just something that comes with the territory. Moving on to the action. This gets a 9 out of 10. Extremely good action. You have 3 methods of deployment. You have your reverse flick or Spidey flick. You have very good access to the lock bar. Doesn't take too much pressure to unlock the lock bar. No lock stick. And you don't have to shift it around in your hand a lot or anything. You can just push it over, okay? Let that flipper tab hit your thumb, and then pull your thumb out of the way, and it just free drops. Nice and slow and controlled. It's not a guillotine, like you have a second to get your finger out, but it's completely smooth, free dropping. And this is not, it was pretty much free dropping out of the box, but I did apply some Gunny glide down onto the bearings that it has. So, free dropper, very satisfying. You have a nice flipper tab, does have some jimping, nice and spaced out, not too aggressive, offers just the right amount of grip, but it's not going to shred your finger. The detent is tuned perfect to be able to do the multiple means of deployment. The reverse flick works very, very well. Super easy, super reliable. Now, in the initial first impressions video, I mentioned that you can't reverse flick it off the fuller. You actually can, but it's just not the easiest. But if you get it just right, you can flick it off of that fuller, or you could slow roll it off of the fuller. You can also thumb flick it. Now, this style thumb hole, I don't find very enjoyable for thumb flicks. Let's see, you gotta get it just right. And you can thumb flick it. So no problems thumb flicking it, but the 2 main methods are gonna be your reverse flick, which you just get the meat of your finger, or of your middle finger, right under that lip right there. Okay, just the meat of your finger. And then you just push forward. And when the detent pressure releases, or when that detent breaks free, the blade just goes flying out on those nice bearings. So, very nice action. The reason I gave it 9 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10 is because it's not 100% perfect action, okay? This knife right here, my Hinder XM18, that's all upgraded and decked out on skiff bearings. This is my definition of perfect action. Okay, so a little bit different, but nonetheless, it's still very close. You don't feel any grittiness or anything, you know, very smooth, but there is a little bit of sound. That's really the only thing that's a little bit of a turnoff. If they could get that silent, silky smooth, it would be a little bit more appealing. But nonetheless, 9 out of 10 is an awesome score. The action is very, very good. Oh, and the other thing with the action, for a flipper tab, I prefer just a hair stiffer of a detent, but I by no means am calling this detent weak. It's actually, I think it's probably more along the lines of being perfect. It's just that my preferences are just, I like my detents just a little bit strong. Not strong to the point where you tear up your fingers after a couple of deployments, but I do like them to where I can, the blade just flies out with more force, which means you need a stronger detent. But this, I mean, that's just a little bit of a nitpick. This is very, very good. And that blade's flying, how much faster can it possibly fly out, you know? I'm just nitpicking. So, I didn't really deduct anything for the detent. I really think the detent is actually pretty perfect. It's more so just that the sound, which I tried to get rid of by applying the Gunny Glide, and that just wasn't happening. So that's all right. Moving on to the aesthetics, I gave it a 8 out of 10. You know, it's not the sexiest knife that I've ever seen, but it does have a solid, legitimate appeal to it. I'm a sucker for compound grinds. I love Wharncliffe blades. I love Fullers. I love how they did this spine. I think that looks really sexy. I love how they did the hardware. You know, they have a captured pivot. Really beautiful right there. You know, kept the back section, kept it simple with a open back construction, black standoffs, black clip, the little bit of pop of blue anodizing on that pivot, and then the rest is blue. So nice minimal hardware look to it. Very good looking. Very, very good looking knife. For materials, I give it an 8 out of 10, which is extremely good score for a budget knife. That is because they used G10 for the handles, which I love me some G10, especially when it's done well. The pocket clip is done well, very solid pocket clip, and it's a deep carry. And they did D2 for the blade steel, and whatever they coated this with, if it's I guess it's probably DLC or PVD or you know, one of those coatings. It is oh no, I don't want to speak too soon. It has been fairly durable. All right, no blade play. Where did those scratches come from? I don't know. But for the most part, this blade coating is holding up very well. So between the blade steel and the handle and all that, the materials, I think they did very well. Especially for the price point. I'm not sure that you can really get too much better than this for this price. So 8 out of 10 on materials. For the hardware, I gave it a 9 out of 10. very happy with the hardware on this. They did T8 for the pivot, T8 for these handle screws back here, and then it's T6s for the pocket clip screws, which are recessed into the clip. However, the pocket clip is not recessed into the handle. Now, this doesn't cause any problems, but it typically is something that I like to see companies do. It makes it just a little bit nicer, a little bit more finished product. So that's something that they could improve on. For the fit and finish, I gave it a 9 out of 10, which it seems abnormally high, but I've looked this thing up and down and I really can't find anything, I can't find any flaws to pick out. So, like I said, I keep these categories objective or subjective, whatever, however you say it, and keep my personal bias out of it. So without a legitimate reason for me to deduct points, 9 out of 10. Very, very impressive. Absolutely no blade play in any direction. Absolutely no lock stick in any direction. I mean, it's built solid. No rattling, no nothing. The only thing is that noise. I'm weird when it comes to noises. Noises are something that I can't help but pay attention to and notice. So any type of noise, that's why I'm really big on knife acoustics. I love acoustics of certain knives. And sometimes that is the sole reason why I carry a specific knife that day. I love the sound of some good knife acoustics, which this one, unfortunately, just the acoustics of it don't do it for me. But fortunately for this knife, that is not one of the categories that I have for the grading scale on my new updated scale. So next up, we have the price, which got a perfect score of a 10 out of 10. And that is because this knife comes in at $51.99 starting today through the 22nd. All right, so there's a sale right now. This knife is 20% off. It's normally $64.99. That's the MSRP or retail price, whatever you call it, for the next couple days. Or let's see, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Okay, so for the next week, you can get this knife for $51.99. And I do have a discount code for the channel. So if you guys use my discount code, I get credit. And my discount code is good for 10% off. It's going to be active for a long time. It is BAF10. And that is, you're going to be able to use that on any of the items that are not on sale already, if I'm understanding correctly. But I'm not positive how that all works. I believe that's the case, but you can always type it in on the coupon code and see if any additional savings come off. And actually, I would appreciate if you do put in the code no matter what, because then they will know that you guys are buying the knife thanks to my video. So, that way you guys get some credit and I get some credit, or you guys get some savings and I get some credit. So, yeah. Now, this is my first time accepting a knife to the channel from a company to do a review and sort of a promotion where I have an opportunity to make money. So I guess this is, in a way, it's a paid promotion. They haven't paid me a dime yet, other than, they gave me this knife, which I'm very thankful for. But I believe, if I understand correctly, if you guys pick any of these up, then I believe I do earn a small commission on those. But you guys have to use my links and my codes in order for me to get any type of credit. And I made this clear to the company from the start, and I've made this clear to everyone, full transparency in all directions. I will never lie and say that I recommend something if I don't actually believe in it and think that it's a good product, think that it's a good deal, or think that it's just, you know, something that you have to have. So when it comes to this, is it something that I think you have to have? It's, you know, it's not completely essential for your well-being and your livelihood or whatever necessarily, but it is a very nice knife. It cuts very well. I mean, you guys see the areas that it shines in and the areas where it might be lacking, which really aren't many. This knife got a 90 out of 100 on my grading scale, which is extremely good score, especially when you consider the price that this knife comes in at for the next 7 days, $51.99. I mean, you can't find a Civivi or a Kaiser or really any of those other budget knives that I would really put up against this for the same price, which is why I rated the value as a 10 out of 10, because I can't come up with any knives under $51.99 that I would rather have than this, or that I think are better than this. So yeah, very competitive option in the budget arena. Very nice knife, looks really good. You know, what I give it for aesthetics? 8 out of 10. Okay, I was about to say, if I gave it less than that, I would have had to raise it, because, you know, the more you look at it, it kind of grows on you. You know, it is really nice. They did a great job with the blade, terminating that edge. You know, right there, they give you a little space to get some sharpening life out of this before you get up near that plunge grind. So yeah, they did a really good job with this. So yeah, good job, Oknife, and shout out to OBUY. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to do this and the opportunity to enjoy this knife. And a special thank you to Lynn. She is the one over at OBUY who made this all possible. So thank you, Lynn. And that's going to wrap it up for this one. So thank you all for watching. I love you guys. Jesus loves you. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.